Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. Myself Vaibhav. In today's session of Visual JForex, I will make you familiar with the indicator named ROC. That is the rate of change. This is the momentum indicator in which we compare the current valuations of any underlying instrument with its prior valuation. So we take any particular value, say for example N, and we compare over time to see what is the change which is happening, whether the price is rising or falling, and what is the momentum, what is the underlying strength of this change. So we use this indicator to figure out the change in percentage terms. So here this is the indicator blocks. We don't really have the description, so we will head to the Visual JForex board developed by the Dukascopy Bank SA, on which we can design and execute the algorithm using these indicators. Today we will see how we can deploy these indicators to design the profitable setup using ROC. So here we will not go into the full-fledged setup. We will basically get familiar with this indicator, and then maybe in coming weeks we will be again visiting back this use of the ROC. But for the time being, this is a get to know series. So one by one we are doing the momentum indicators, and today it's the turn of ROC. So here I have also included the formula how it is calculated. So it's fairly simple. You have to simply take the current valuation, current price, and deduct the price n periods back, and then divide that price by the value of that point in time and multiply it by 100. So that's how you get the ROC. If you want some more description on it, you will have to search it on your own on internet, and it's easily available. So we will not really go into the details of this calculation. Basically we are more concerned with how we can design the setup which will do the job of calculation and execution for us. So we are more into the automated setup here. The start point, as I have said many times, can be any of the three. So here for example we will take the on candle as a start point for today's session. So here now coming to the ROC's parameters, we have to define four input parameters, namely default instrument period and the shift value, that is the look back period and time period. The difference which needs to be calculated between the current value and the prior value. So this is the difference. If we are taking 10, then the difference will be calculated from the current candlestick's closing price and the candlestick which closed 10 time periods back. So that's how this is going to work, and depending on these input parameters we will have the output value. So before we define the input values, input parameters, we will see how we can use this indicator ROC for our advantage and how it works actually. So here this indicator is fairly simple to use. The default value here also is 10. So if you consider the current value for the candlestick is around 104.57, and we will have to go back in time by 10 hours, since this chart is of 1 hour, the candlestick each is of 1 hour. So we will have to go back in time, and we will have to see what was the value on 23 GMT, and 23 GMT is this. So we will have to take the closing value. It was somewhere around 104.69, and the current value is around 0.1% lower. So as you can see here, we have the calculation being done for us by the ROC, and the output value for the ROC is 0.108, and it is in negative as the value is lower. So we have the change in price of minus 0.107%, and that is simply the difference being calculated between the prior closing value and the current closing value, and it is being naturalized. So we are normalized, sorry. So we are taking it in percentage terms. And if you consider here, there was big jump in the valuations of the USD JPY, and for whatever reason it might have happened, it gets immediately reflected. So here coming to around 18, 19 or say 20 GMT. So the 20 GMT we have the ROC at 0.57%, which means more than half a percentage point move happened between the value output value for that point in time and the value 10 hours back. So here if we go back in time at 10 GMT, we have the USD JPY trading a lot lower, then it jumped around half a percentage point. So we have here the change being reflected in this ROC's output value. So we can use this indicator to see what is the strength of any change. And if we see that ROC is changing fast, that gives us an idea that there is a big move happening. And if we are able to utilize this information in conjunction with other indicators, using which we can figure out the underlying trend, the direction of the trend, then I think we can use this indicator to figure out, to design various options, various setups which are likely to prove profitable. So this is a momentum indicator, and you get an idea whether the momentum is strong or just it is moving sideways. And this indicator is unbound indicator. That means that it can dip to whatever extent the underlying instrument can move. So here we have just the values fluctuating above and below zero depending on the price change, and there is no restrictions on the value it can take. So here we have to kind of know what is the usual movement in any underlying instrument on which we are going to use this indicator, and in compared to that what is the current move. So if we are able to do such kind of comparison, I think that is likely to prove more profitable, because every instrument has its own peculiarities and it is going to move differently. So we need to be aware of its usual momentum and then compare the sudden spikes either on the upside or on the downside. And as you can see on the chart, we had this downward momentum sustaining in USD JPY for many stations, and here usually the value, the ROC output has been on the negative side, of course barring from some exceptions in which we saw these retracements taking place. So here this indicator gives you an fair idea of the direction of the trend also, as well as the strength of the momentum. So you can use this indicator for both the purposes, for figuring out what is happening, what is the underlying trend of the instrument as well as the strength of that trend. So we can use this indicator in many ways. And again I would like to also show you how we can edit it to make the configuration bit different whichever suits our purpose. So here the price on which this change is going to be calculated can be different. It can be closing price, it can be open price, it can be high price, low price, median price, typical price, weighted close price. So we have these all the options open for us, and depending on what kind of applied price we choose, we will have the difference occurring in these RSC values. RSC values are going to be taking into account the low price of each candles and then doing the comparison. And if we change this parameter also, suppose if we want the ROC to take into consideration the changes which have happened over a day, that is 24 hours. So here we can simply use this ROC indicator of 24 time period on 1 hour each, and do the comparison and see if on the longer time frame like a days time frame, whether the prices are rising or whether the prices are falling, and here we will get the fair amount of idea. As you can see, we are trading in today's session above the yesterday's highs. So here, even comparatively speaking, we can see that ROC value is firmly in positive territory and holding pretty close to that. So this indicator gives you an idea of the longer time frame as well if the need arises. So that is not an issue. You can design the automated setup on the short, on the medium, as well as on the long term. So you can design the setup as per your need and it will do the job for you. And one way or the other you will get the idea what is happening in the underlying instrument. And as I said, we have to be mindful of its prior fluctuations as well. So you have to be keeping you can say a log or some other indicator or some tool which will also keep track of the normal values, normal fluctuations like ATR, and then do the comparison between the various indicators. And I think that will also work very fine. So that's it from my side for today's session on the charting, and now I will briefly explain to you the changes which can be applied on these input parameters. So here, coming to the default instrument, we can use this Euro USD as it is, or we can carry out the changes. We can make other instrument as our default instrument choice, and it will work just fine. So all these instruments are available for our use, and we can use any. For today's session, we will pick the USD JPY as our choice. The time period can be anything from 10 seconds to 1 month, as long as it is supported on this blocks system. So here we have the options which can be chosen for designing the algorithmic setup. So here, coming to the hourly chart, the default instrument is USD JPY, the time period is 1 hour each. The look back period is going to be taken into consideration when you want to do the comparison. If you want to take into account the current value ROC, current value of ROC, then the shift should be 0. If you want to go back in time by say a couple of hours, then you will have to put that time period here, the amount by which you want to go back in time. And for doing the comparison, for doing the analysis, we will need to define this parameter also. We can change it, we can create a different time horizon, and it will work just fine. So here, for example, we change it to 24, and now the output value we will be getting is going to be the ROC of the USD JPY of 1 hour each for last 1 day 24 hours, and it is going to be calculated on the bit side. And as I explained to you on the chart also, you can make the changes in applied price. So these options are available here for closing price, open price, high price, low price, median price, the typical value. So we have to apply, we have to choose what kind of ROC output value we need for our algorithmic setup, and we can choose that applied price. I hope you have been able to understand the workings, the functioning of ROC. And of course, if you want to develop the setup on your own, I would say that you build it, you do some observation, you see what kind of parameters will be required, and then once you are done, I would suggest that you do extensive testing before you come to any conclusion of its efficacy. So that way you will have the grasp of how the ROC works and how it can solve your problem of finding the profitable trades. With that, I say it's time to wrap up the session. I will be back tomorrow. Till then, have a fabulous time ahead. Goodbye.